Good drones keep tightening the sanctions pressure on Russia. Another refinery and their aggressive oil tankers didn't survive their encounter with Ukrainian UAVs. The occupiers are trying to seize the Donetsk region. All of Putin's reserves are being thrown to the front. How is Russia leveraging Venezuela to wage a hybrid war against the United States? We'll break it down for you. Poseidon is afloat, but are Europe and the US still scared of the Kremlin's nuclear club? Next, global reaction to Putin's later scare tactic. This is Ukraine Today. I'm Sofia Maleshko with the top updates from Russia's war against Ukraine. Subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. Good drones keep reminding the aggressor state that invading Ukraine was a bad idea. As a result of Ukrainian UAV strikes inside Russia, fires broke out at substations in Lipetsk region, the Alchevsk substation in the occupied Luhansk region, substations in Zhelezhnogorsk, Kursk region. Explosions were reported in the cities of Lazarevo and Temryuk in Krasnodar Krai, as well as in the city of Oryol. Good drones also visited Tuapse, hitting 4 tankers. 1 vessel was destroyed. The General Staff also confirmed a strike on the Saratov oil refinery. That's what effective sanctions look like. Of course, Ukraine's defense forces launched drone strikes in response to Russia's terror against civilians and civilian infrastructure. Overnight, Russia struck Sumy region, killing 1 person. Overall, during the night of November 3rd, Russian forces attacked with 3 X-47M2 Kinzhal aeroballistic missiles, 4 Iskander-M ballistic missiles, 5 S-300, S-400 surface-to-air guided missiles used for ground attack, and 138 strike UAVs Shahed, Herbera, and other types. Air defense shot down 116 targets. The frontline situation is very difficult. Russia is ramping up pressure. RBK Ukraine sources report Putin has ordered the full capture of the Donetsk region by the end of February. More on what's happening at the front next in the video.
The occupiers are preparing to surrender Pokrovsk. Against the backdrop of the Ukrainian armed forces' success at the front, our defenders have focused their efforts on the enemy in this direction. Thus, the 7th Air Assault Corps has already reported that the defense forces have improved their positions in Pokrovsk, and now they are increasing the number of our assault groups in the city.
We're talking about fire control in this location, that is, using barrel artillery accordingly and FPV drones. It should be noted that this situation is typical not only for this direction but for others as well, for a long time now.
As a result of successful countermeasures, Ukrainian troops were able to improve their tactical position in several city blocks, military officials and analysts note.
With Pokrovsky, the presence of approximately 200 to 250 personnel of the occupation forces has been confirmed. The main area of combat operations is around the railway station and accordingly the railway lines, which in fact divide Pokrovsk in half.
However, despite all the successes of our defenders, the situation in Pokrovsk still remains difficult and dynamic. Let us recall that it became known the day before that the GUR is currently conducting a daring counter-operation in Pokrovsk. The scouts were airlifted into the settlement by helicopters. The head of the agency, Kirilo Budanov, also arrived with them, personally directing the operation to destroy the enemy.
At the moment, the operational reserve of the defense forces of Ukraine has been redeployed to the Pokrovsk direction. Moreover, special units of the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense. The latter have a positive background and experience in urban combat.
The occupiers are willing to do literally anything just to avoid facing the main intelligence directorate on the front, even resorting to sabotage. Thus, agents of the partisan movement Atesh report on the valiant Russian soldiers from the 115th Motorized Rifle Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces, who burned their own military truck to avoid being sent to Pokrovsk. These guys got really lucky. Thanks to their act of sabotage, they survived, which can't be said for nearly 1,000 other Russian contract soldiers who, over the past day, were sent to the afterlife for a concert with Kobzon. By the start of the week, the Russian army had already lost at least 4 armored fighting vehicles, a quarter of 100 artillery systems, and at least 121 vehicles. At the same time, for the first time in several weeks, there was a day at the front without any enemy tanks being destroyed. Because of an acute shortage of armor, the Kremlin is no longer throwing heavy equipment into battle. Instead, relentless human wave assaults are taking their place. In the past month alone, the occupiers have lost as many as 3 divisions worth of personnel and 3 tank battalions. According to analysts' calculations, in October, the Russian army lost more than 31,000 soldiers, which is roughly equivalent to the personnel strength of several divisions. In addition to this, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, in October, Ukrainian defense forces destroyed around 230 enemy armored fighting vehicles, more than 800 artillery systems, 29 multiple rocket launchers, and 93 tanks, which is roughly equivalent to the strength of 3 tank battalions. So how does Putin respond to all this? What is Putin's answer? Of course, with record levels of terror against Ukraine's civilian population. For example, in October alone, RFA launched a record 270 missiles at use, which is 46% more than in September and is the highest number since 2023. President Zelensky reported that just this week, Russia attacked Ukraine using 1,500 strike drones, 1,170 glide bombs, and more than 70 missiles of various types.
Today, our air defense performed quite well. 223 Russian strike drones overnight, 206 were destroyed or suppressed. Every day, every night. There must be results in destroying the Russian occupier, in defending our positions, and in protecting our cities and communities. I thank all our units for exactly these kinds of results, everyone who truly defends Ukrainian positions.
And, by the way, regarding the results in destroying the occupier's military targets. Here, the armed forces of Ukraine also have something to be proud of.
Back then it was flying.
So, in the Krasnodar region, drones struck an oil refinery in the city of Tuapse. According to preliminary information, the drones leveled the first berth of the oil terminal there. A fire broke out at the site of the strike. The deep water berth of Rosneft was also hit. This is a maritime port facility specially built for loading oil products onto tankers of Putin's shadow fleet.
Right above the city here, you won't see anything there.
It was also restless last night in the Kursk region. In the city of Krasnodar, Ukrainian drones visited the local power plant. As a result, part of the city was left without electricity.
Fire. It was working, but nothing worked at all. It's cold. Just now there was shooting. You could hear the shots. They didn't shoot down a damn thing.
The Ukrainian armed forces also struck the temporarily occupied territories, in particular Alchevsk in the Luhansk region, where a power substation was also attacked. As a result, a total blackout is still ongoing in parts of the region.
Our next piece is about Venezuela, or more precisely, the conflict around it. You may ask what this South American country has to do with Russia's war against Ukraine. Our next video explains.
From applause at their meeting and statements about an incredible conversation to what is essentially a direct confrontation on the territory of a third country, Putin and Trump continue to raise the stakes and are closer than ever to an open war between the US and Russia. And this is not about the Ukrainian front, but rather about a war in South America that has not yet begun. Thus, Donald Trump, wanting to finally resolve the issue of drug shipments from Venezuela, sent a 16,000-strong military force to its shores. At the same time, according to the Washington Post, the forces include 8 surface warships, a nuclear submarine and aircraft, including a B-52 strategic bomber and F-35 fighter jets. In addition, the following were sent to the Caribbean basin. The aircraft carrier Gerald R. Ford, accompanied by 5 escort ships.
Currently, about 16,000 American troops are concentrated in the Caribbean basin, including 6,000 Marines. This figure also includes personnel stationed at the base in Puerto Rico, where F-35 fighter jets are currently deployed.
Obviously realizing that things were heating up, the president of Venezuela requested military assistance from Russia, China and Iran. Only Putin responded, He sent a Russian Il-76 military transport aircraft to Caracas.
It is noted that the operator of the Il-76 is the company Aviacon Zitotrans, which is under sanctions from the US, Canada, and Ukraine due to its ties with Russian military structures, including repeated deliveries of equipment to regions where Wagner PMC mercenaries operate.
Moreover, the flight of the Russian IL took more than 2 days, all in order to bypass the airspace of Western countries, to avoid possible cargo inspection. What exactly arrived on board remains unclear for now. However, analysts explain that everything Maduro asked Putin for, he simply was unable to send due to growing losses in the war against Ukraine.
According to internal documents from the US government that were leaked to Washington, Maduro's administration asked Putin to help strengthen their air defense system, including the delivery of 14 missile sets and to restore several Russian Su-30 Mk fighter jets that Venezuela had previously purchased from Russia. And he also said that some extra money wouldn't hurt, as well as a major overhaul of the engines. By the way,
after Moscow's support, which was clearly announced in advance, Maduro abruptly changed his rhetoric, shifting from endless calls for peace to an openly militant tone.
If they ever dare to come here, here lies the greatest shield of our country, the working class. Not a pin will move, and a general insurgent revolutionary strike of workers and peasants will be declared in the streets until power is returned, so that an even more radical revolution can be carried out. Brothers and sisters, take this as an order.
In other words, Venezuela is planning to fight the Americans with Russian weapons. Experts add that many of the modern systems in Maduro's army are simply unknown, so in the event that high-precision weapons or unmanned systems are used, the personnel will clearly be Russian, which could already open up a direct conflict between the United States and Russia. However, it's clear who the winner will be even before the fight begins. Russia simply doesn't have any extra weapons. Everything is being used in Ukraine. There are no reserves either, nor is there any money. That's why experts say Russian assistance to Venezuela is more of a political gesture from the Kremlin. Once again, it's about bluffing and showing their fake readiness to take on the United States. However, unlike Russia, the US has sent such a contingent and such weaponry to the region that if a war does break out, its outcome will be predetermined. From the very first hours.
Donald Trump's main personal priority is to become the GOAT. GOAT. Greatest of all times. The greatest in world history. In this regard, he is neither a peacemaker nor a warmonger. Where peacekeeping efforts are needed, there will be no diplomatic efforts. Where war is needed to achieve the main goal of becoming the greatest statesman of all time, there will be war. All the more so since this does not contradict the peacekeeping concept. Peace through strength. Peace through strength. In order to achieve peace sometime, somewhere, you have to fight at least a little.
But Putin's involvement in this little victorious war of Trump's against Maduro could backfire on the man in the bunker. Emboldened by success and irritated by Moscow's behavior, the American leader might start making impulsive decisions that are extremely advantageous for Ukraine. If there's one thing Donald Trump doesn't lack, it's emotionality.
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump gave an interview to CBS saying he believes the war could be stopped within a couple of months.
It is working with Putin, I think. I did different with him because we don't do very much business with Russia, for one thing. You know, he's not like somebody that buys a lot from us because of foolishness. And I think he'd like to be. I think he wants to come in and he wants to trade with us and he wants to make a lot of money for Russia. And I think that's great. That's what I like.
Can you get it done in a couple of months, do you think?
I think we're going to get it done, yeah. I think he really wants to do business with the U.S. But it did work with India and it did work with Pakistan and it did work with 60% of those countries.
Well, that would be good if so, but if Putin is currently pouring all Russians' money into a war where he cannot achieve significant gains, while losing his fuel industry and still terrorizing Ukraine, it's hard to see how the prospect of trading with America alone would sway him. We will see. As President Trump dreams of trade with Putin, the latter is again rattling the nuclear saber. Russia has launched a submarine capable of carrying the newest underwater nuclear torpedo, Poseidon. More on the world's reaction to the Kremlin's nuclear threats next in our story.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
The arms race has indeed begun. Nuclear blackmail continues. Following the test of the Burevestnik missile in Severodvinsk, a ceremonial launching of the nuclear submarine Khabarovsk was held at the Sevmash plant.
The nuclear submarine cruiser Khabarovsk is ready to leave the slipway. Start moving.
According to Russian media, the Khabarovsk submarine can carry up to 12 unmanned nuclear torpedoes. Poseidon. Moscow claims that Poseidon is capable of operating at depths of up to 1,000 meters, and it can reach speeds of over 100 knots, making it difficult to detect and intercept. With their new torpedoes, the Kremlin's inhabitants are trying to intimidate NATO countries.
The development of the Burevestnik made it possible to conduct tests of the Poseidon. There is simply no equal to this weapon. The President personally oversaw the implementation of this project from start to finish. He accompanied its realization every step of the way. We see the result. An increase in the country's defense capability. And today, those abroad who wish us harm should be preparing to bow before our Supreme Commander-in-Chief. Just so that this weapon isn't used.
But in reality, this is just fantasy and empty bravado about yet another so-called unparalleled weapon. In reality, the Russian Navy, and especially its submarine fleet, lags decades behind its direct competitor, the United States.
No one even comes close. No one can compare with us. Russia and China are 25 years behind the US in both quantity and quality of submarines. In December, a new Virginia-class submarine will be laid down.
While the Kremlin is launching new vessels, Khabarovsk, the White House is announcing the largest modernization of the Navy in modern history. But even without this modernization, the US already has the most powerful naval and submarine fleet in the world.
The primary and most significant component of the Russian Federation's naval forces is without a doubt its highly advanced and formidable submarine fleet. However, in contrast to the United States, the Russian Federation currently operates approximately 17 nuclear-powered submarines in total. Whereas, as I want to emphasize again, the United States has about 70 of them. In the arsenal of the Russian Federation's Navy, in addition to 17 nuclear submarines, there are 33 diesel-electric submarines.
One of these Russian diesel-electric submarines, the Novorossiysk, broke down in the Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Europe a few weeks ago, becoming the subject of jokes by the NATO Secretary General.
Now, essentially, there is almost no Russian military presence left in the Mediterranean Sea. There is only one broken Russian submarine which, limping along like a lame duck, is making its way home from patrol.
For the North Atlantic Alliance led by the United States, the Navy is a key tool for deterring and influencing potential adversaries anywhere in the world.
The Soviet fleet is a source of pride for the United States and a main component both in conducting military operations outside the United States and as an element of the US military political presence. In almost every region of the globe, let me remind you, the United States has the largest navy in the world. And their main pride is their carrier strike groups, their aircraft carrier strike groups. They have 11 aircraft carriers in their fleet.
Ukraine has also made a significant contribution to reducing Russia's naval potential. According to the Ukrainian Navy, since the start of the full-scale war, the armed forces of Ukraine, with the help primarily of long-range missiles and unmanned naval drones, they destroyed 28 Russian ships, including the submarine Rostov-on-Don. Once the pride of Erefia, the Black Sea Fleet has been left without the Black Sea.
That's all for today. Thank you for watching. Strength to Ukraine's defenses. Glory to Ukraine. Subscribe, like, comment, share, and see you next time.